The philosophy of physics in Latin America is recent. In previous video I tried to highlight the influence of positivism thought in the early days of the independence movements of the countries of the subcontinent and southern cone regions. In this video I will broadly address the ontological and epistemological issues in the discursive philosophy of science. Sharpen intellectual senses for more in-depth research. The philosophy of physics in Latin America is recent. The video highlights that despite the initial contributions of Professor Mario Bunge and Roberto Turriti, both Argentines, due to emigration, they suffered an interruption, which prevented lines of research from their work, impacting the initial development of field in Latin America. While quantum mechanics as the main focus, and the Olympia Lombardi Research Group is one of the main centers for studying quantum mechanics in the region. This group carries out research in two main areas. What they proposed, well guys, that's the term, as we know quantum mechanics is a probabilistic theory, so they proposed it. A modal-hamiltonian interpretation whose characteristics of the interpretation is realistic, seeking to provide a description of quantum reality, non-collapsed. Do not assume the collapse of the wave function. The Hamiltonian, as a determining factor, assigns a crucial role to the Hamiltonian in determining the properties of particles. The interpretation proved effective in explaining several physical situations, such as ideal and non-ideal measures, applied to the hydrogen atom, Zeeman effect and fine structures. The interpretation was reformulated into a Galilean invariant form and applied to other problems, such as quantum decoherence and quantum measurement in informational terms. Property bundle ontology. The modal-hamiltonian interpretation proposes an ontology of bundles of properties that considers contextuality and indistinguishability. This ontology was formalized by Krauser's quasi-set theory and applied to solve the problem of entanglement in the case of indistinguishability. The work of Olympia Lombardi's group demonstrates the region's ability to contribute to cutting-edge debates in theoretical physics. The modal-hamiltonian interpretation and the property bundle ontology represent original and significant contributions to the understanding of quantum mechanics. Therefore, in philosophical terms, it results in a focus on the philosophy of physics and quantum mechanics, and their philosophical implications. Well, after introductions of 2 minutes and 29 seconds, I will now go into the information expanded from context that I was willing to expose. I hope you continue until end, and consider subscribing to the channel, sharing and commenting on the subject. Let's go then. The philosophy of physics Latin America. Development, contributions and perspective. The philosophy of physics, as a branch of the philosophy of science, is dedicated to the conceptual analysis of the fundamental theories and concepts of physics, seeking to clarify their logical structure, ontological commitments and intertheoretic relations. Traditionally, this area has focused on theories such as relativity, quantum mechanics and statistical mechanics. The scope of the philosophy of physics encompasses the investigation of the meaning of physical concepts, including historically important theories such as Newtonian gravity, and engages deeply with contemporary philosophical debates, often overlapping with metaphysics and epistemology. Central questions such as the nature of space and time, the interpretation of quantum mechanics, the foundations of statistical mechanics, causality, and physical laws are also objects of study. The application of the area of investigation in the context of Latin America presents particular nuances shaped by the intellectual history and socioeconomic conditions of the regions. The philosophy of physics in Latin America has a trajectory marked by specific philosophical influences and a relatively late emergence as a consolidated field of study. Positivism, especially the philosophy of Auguste Comte, exerted a significant and lasting impact on Latin America. Compared to other regions, Latin America governments of the time adopted Comte's view that all knowledge should be based on the scientific study of the general laws and society could progress through knowledge. This influence manifested in an emphasis on the methodological improvement of the natural sciences, medicine and education. The motto "Order and Progress," derived from Comte's writings, was even incorporated into the flag of Brazil, symbolizing the belief in advancement through science. However, this initial valorization of empirical science did not necessarily translate into an immediate development of the philosophy of physics as a deeper conceptual reflection on physical theories. Logic and the philosophy of science. Including the philosophy of physics, development later in Latin American philosophy, mainly in the second half of the 20th century. This development was largely driven by philosophers working in the analytic tradition. In the 1940s, there were reactions against excessively speculative philosophy, also driven by the arrival of the European thinkers in the regions. The field gained strength in the 1960s and 1970s, thanks to the effort of proeminence figures who encouraged rigor and clarity in philosophy. An important milestone for collaboration and exchange in the region was the founding of the Association of Philosophy and History of Science in the South Cone A.F.H.I.C. in 2000. Latin American intellectuals such as José Enrique Rodo had already criticized positivism's excessive focus on quantification and pragmatic utility, indicating an internal intellectual dynamics that was not limited to mere repetition of external ideas. The arrival European thinkers in the 1940s also stimulated a reconsideration of purely speculative approaches to philosophy. Research in the philosophy of physics in Latin America covers a variety of topics that echo the broader discussions in the philosophy of science. These topics including the scientific method, rationality and theory choice, the dynamics of science, scientific realism, scientific pluralism, representation in science, causality and the laws of nature, the philosophical history of science, and the relations between science, society and values. In the specific context of the philosophy of physics, research developed at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico UNAM addresses the ontology of space and time, the interpretation of quantum mechanics and quantum gravity, investigation the relationship between physics and metaphysics. The presence of these central topics indicates an integration of Latin American research with the fundamental questions that motivate the philosophy of physics globally. Several Latin American philosophers and physics have made notable contributions to the philosophy of physics and related areas. Roberto Torretti, a Chilean philosopher with international recognition, dedicated himself to the history of philosophy of physics and the philosophy of mathematics, influenced by Kant. His works include studies on the philosophy of geometry, relativity, and the philosophy of physics in general. His book, The Philosophy of Physics, is considered a masterful analysis that introduces the subject and offers original contributions, focusing on the conceptual development of modern physics. Mario Bunge, an Argentine-Canadian philosopher and physicist, development of modern physics, developed a comprehensive scientific perspective based on global systemism, emergentism, rationalism, scientific realism, materialism, and consequentialism. A proponent of exact philosophy and a critic of pseudoscience, Bunge published extensively, including the monumental work Treatise on Basic Philosophy and the influential Foundations of Physics, where he addressed the interpretation of quantum mechanics from a realist perspective. Other significant contributions include the structuralism in science of Ulises C. Mullans, a Venezuelan philosopher who worked in Mexico. Francisco Miró Quesada from Peru and Newton da Costa from Brazil stood out for their work in par consistent logic, relevant fro dealing with contradictions in scientific theories. In the 19th century, Cuban philosophers Félix Varela y Morales, José de la Luz y Caballero and Enrique José Verona were important in overcoming late scholastic teaching, favoring induction. Several academic institutions and research groups in Latin America are dedicated to the study of the philosophy of physics and related fields. The Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico has long tradition in the philosophy of science. Dating back to the 1950s, the Seminar on Scientific and Philosophical Problems, founded in 1955, remains active, promoting interdisciplinary discussion. Figures such as Fernando Salmerón, Luis Valoro, and Alejandro Rossi strengthened the area, and Carlos Ulises Mullans joined the Institute of Philosophical Research (IIF) in the 1970s. Research at UNN covers central themes of the philosophy of physics, such as the ontology of space and time, the interpretation of quantum mechanics and quantum gravity. The doctoral program in the philosophy of science at UNN aims to train HAG-level researchers capable of the developing original investigation. The Institute of Physics at UNN also conducts research theoretical and applied physics. In Brazil, the University of São Paulo USP stands out for its Institute of Physics IFUSP, the oldest and largest institution for physics research and teaching in the country. IFUSP has several departments and research groups covering almost all areas of physics. The Faculty of Philosophy, Lettres and Human Science FLCH at USP, founded in 1934, also has a long history. The State University of Campinas Unicamp housed the renowned Globe Wetagan Institut PF Physics I.F.G.W., with research groups in areas such as quantum electronics, applied physics, condensed matter physics, and cosmic rays. Besides these institutions, the Association PF Philosophy and History of Science in the South Cone, AFHIC, plays a crucial role promoting collaboration and exchange among researchers from Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and other countries in the South Cone. The Philosophy of Physics Society also encourages the organization of local chapters worldwide, including in Latin America. The development of the philosophy physics in Latin America faces several challenges. Richard Feynman observed problems in physics education in the region, which extend to broader educational and social issues. He highlighted rote memorization without understanding and the lack of collaboration among students. Social, political, and economic problems in Latin America impact the capacity for research and teaching. The inclusion of philosophy in higher education is minimal in some contexts, with few bachelor's programs and philosophy courses in professional areas often diluted. The very act of doing philosophical work in Spanish can be seen as problematic by some in the field. Latin America philosophy may face problems of invisibility with works neglected by researchers in Western centers and even within the region itself. Historically, there have been debates about the originality and quality of Latin American philosophy. Despite the challenges, there are opportunities for the development of the philosophy of physics in Latin America. The very problem of physics education can be an opportunity for new discoveries. The development of technical capacity in Latin America can lead to economic advancement. The Philosophy of Physics Society actively seeks to increase the participation of underrepresented groups and encourages the organization of local chapters in regions such as Latin America. The Internet and increased institutional support have reduced geographical and institutional barriers, allowing for great global interaction and expansion of the field. There is a growing recognition and legitimacy of Latin America philosophy in the global philosophical discourse. The focus on interdisciplinary fields presents opportunities for philosophy to contribute to research and data analysis in physics.
The philosophy of physics in Latin America is a developing field with a rich history and unique challenges and opportunities. The strong influence of Positivism in G past shaped early scientific thought, but the emergence of the philosophy of science in the second half of the 20th century, driven by the analytic tradition, paved the way for a deeper reflection on the foundations of physics. Significant contribution from philosophers such as Roberto Torridi and Mario Bunge demonstrate the region's capacity to produce internationally relevant work. Institutions such as UNAN and USP house active research groups, and growing emphasis on philosophical decolonization may lead to innovative perspective on fundamental questions of physics. Despite educational, social, and economic challenges, increased regional and international collaboration, along with the use of line resources, offers a promising path for the future of the philosophy PF physics in Latin America. Well, folks, I left aside the in-depth analysis, the considerations of the comprehensive literature found in books and newspapers, but in the description, I will be leaving a small list.